Coming to Newport, building a house, you're starting to build a life. Did you have your first child here in Newport, or?
We did, and she was born at St. Joseph's Hospital because we didn't have any practicing um, cert, OBGYN people here then.
Because Hoke Hospital hadn't been built at that time either, had it?
Pardon?
Hoke Hospital hadn't been built at that time either, had
It was built in 51, and so we could have had our baby here, but there wasn't anybody that was board certified in OBGYN, so we went to St. Joseph's. But then the other three children all were born at Hoke.
Hoke. So you had 4 kids in total.
Mm-hmm.
What are their names?
Their names? Tammy, Terry, Buzzy, and Baby was what everybody called them then. No, it was Tammy, Sissy, Buzzy, and Baby. But their names are Tammy, Terry, Mike, and Lorna.
That's kind of a different offshoot. How did they earn those nicknames?
How what?
How did Baby earn his nickname?
Because that's what Tammy, was only a year and a half when the next child was born. I don't know, we just called her Sissy, and it just ended up like that. So John Klug, the Klugs lived over, so the Klugs lived over on Harbor Island Road, and he was, Janet Klug, the mother, was the daughter of John McLeod, who was a contractor who built the Harbor Island Bridge and was a big, well-known contractor. So they lived there, and then John Klug still is around somewhere. He still calls them by their original names, Sissy, Buzzy, and Baby.
How cute.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, did your kids also go to school here in Newport Beach?
They did. They went to Corona Del Mar Elementary, which is unfortunately gone, and then Harbor View, and then Lincoln, and then Corona Del Mar High School.
That's the CDM I like to hear.
I know.
Now, all of your kids went to Corona Del Mar.
All of them.
And when did they all graduate, if you could recall?
Oh my gosh.
Or like by when was your last child graduating from Corona Del Mar? When did the last one leave?
Well, so they were, so Tammy was born in 73. She was I can never remember what years that 23. So it was about 1970 when she would have graduated, and I'm pretty sure that was about it. And they were, so Terry was a year and a half behind, and then Mike was in the year after that, and then Lorna the year after that. So it would have been between 1970 and 1975 when they all graduated. And then, so they all got involved in their school politics to some degree. And we're all on they were all officers of the school classes, and
Different clubs.
played football, and were in I talked one of them out of being a cheerleader or one of those kinds of things. They were in the drill team, though. Corona Del Mar was great.
Now, with that being said, can you recall, since your kids also played sports, can you recall the Battle of the Bay against Newport Harbor at all during when they played sports?
Not so much, but there was a really good there was a good feeling between the two schools. I happened to be, because we had 3 girls, my life was involved in the Girl Scouts, and we had a senior Girl Scout troop at Corona Del Mar. Most of them were from Corona Del Mar, and Corky Whitford had a senior Girl Scout troop at at Harbor High, and we all had to compete against each other at the GAM, which was at the dunes every year. And it was like USC against Stanford or something. It was, it was just this fun competition that we had. But the same thing was true of I think it was, of the football and other things. The kids themselves saw it as kind of a fun competition.
Did you guys ever get involved with that competition, or?
Not the football, no.
Now, with that also being said, let's go back to the Girl Scouts. How did you originally get involved with the Girl Scouts? Were you a Girl Scout originally, or did you only become a leader?
No,
When you're
just same way it always happens to people is you're a parent, you're invited to some meeting, and you're told that you can have a troop here, but somebody's got to be the leader. And you're sitting there waiting for somebody to raise their hand, but nobody does. And so then you kind of raise your own hand and say, I'll do it if somebody will help me. And then usually somebody will help you, and that's how you get involved.
Now, being a local Girl Scout leader, did you ever use the Girl Scout house that used to be?
All the time.
Really?
So Neva Thomas was our original. She was the paid Girl Scout, I don't know what it was called, that was in charge of the Newport area. Neva Thomas lived over on the Peninsula Point. So when that was built, it was named after Neva Thomas, which I don't know that sign has been used on the new Scout House, which is too bad, but that was special. She was a special person and very influential on a lot of people's lives. She was one of these people who you remember as one of those adults that kind of affected you, because she would go to a Girl Scout event where we would be out in the park somewhere, and she would be the last one to leave, and she would be picking up the last piece of trash that nobody else had picked up, to be sure that we left it better than we found it. And so, that kind of affects everybody that knows these people who are like that.
That sounds like it has a really large impact the Scouts had, especially.
I think so. At the time, we had a lot of Elizabeth Starr was.
I talked to her as well.
Have you talked to her?
Mm-hmm.
So she was very much involved in it, and she and I were we were both involved in the Orange County Girl Scout Board of Directors there was a little. What's evolved over the years is that it used to be that we had Newport Harbor Girl Scout Council, and just like we had our own schools and our own school board, and then it had evolved into this regional thing where you have the Orange County Girl Scout Council, which means that, and you have the regional school system, so you no longer can just dictate your own policies for your own area. You have to share, and there was always the concern, always has been, always will be, that whenever Newport is sharing with someone else, people expect Newport to have more money and to share and so forth. So there was a lot of back and forthing about that, but I do believe in regional systems. I think that it has to be that way, and there has to be sharing.
Was also in the 70s, when your kids were going to school, was the Vietnam War. Did you ever have any fears or that your sons would be drafted?
Oh, I did, and it's what I'm so lucky, because the war ended before he was old enough to be drafted, barely, just barely. And I I don't know. I mean, not that I could have done anything about it, and I don't know what he would have done. He would have no doubt gone to war, but yeah, that was scary, very scary.
Given because you were involved with some organizations at that time, was there any kind of local outreach to reach out to current Newport sons that were serving, or to kind of protest against the war, or was there anything like that in Newport?
Not that I was involved with. No. I mean, we were all, those of us that had sons that age were directly fresh out of World War II,
Yeah.
and had an abhorrence for the war, but and I'm sure there must have been some protests going on, but I wasn't involved in
Aware.
it. At some point, there was a big move here that a lot of families were involved with. The one that was a no more war. It wasn't called that, but it was called. I mean, it was built on the premise that you can't have another war.
Yeah. Okay.
It will demolish everything, and so. And it was built on the premise that it was.
Are you talking about like a slogan being developed here?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it wasn't developed here. I think it was developed in Palo Alto.
and then it spread here and became a big deal.
Barbara Shelton would remember the name of it. It was like it was designed so that couples would get together in their living rooms, and then they would spread this. That would spread everywhere,
Huh.
and that you. Why can't I remember that? Anyway, it had a name. It was No More War,
Yeah.
but that wasn't the name of it.
But it was kind of like an organization.
It was designed to be a international kind of an organization that just spread, so that people everywhere would. But it didn't last, and I need to go back and look at what happened to that too, because the premise was that no matter what you do at this point, war will be
Detrimental.
yeah.
Now, going back to understanding like wartime subjects and stuff like that, I'm kind of curious, do you have any memorable celebrity experiences or encounters in Newport Beach?
Well, you mentioned Buddy Ebsen. So Nancy Ebsen was my daughter Lorna's scout leader, or Brownie scout leader, and they would have meetings at her house on Bevel Island. So yes, we did see Buddy on occasion, and he was just like a farmer, with his blue jeans and his overalls, and just what you'd think he was. He was not a fancy person at all.
Do you have any memorable interactions with him that you can recall?
No, not really. No, just like a normal family. And other than that, we had Yasha Heifetz, who lived on Harbor Island, who was the violinist. He lived here, and
Did you ever have any private concerts in his home? Or
yes, he would have a private concert for neighbors once in a while. He had a soundproof room where he practiced his violin.
That's what I wanted to ask you next. Was how often was it for you to be sitting outside and
No, never. No.
So he sounds like he was a very respectable person too, in that sense. He didn't want to disturb everybody.
Right.
When he practiced.
No, he was, and it was unfortunate that they didn't save his house. I mean, that was the Frank Lloyd Wright house with the thatched roof, and it was on 3 lots. It was a big, sort of a South Sea Island looking thing, and it's just sad that it got removed.
And so you can actually recall Harbor Island pretty much being almost barren at that point.
Well, it was starting to build up at that point. It was mostly barren when we built in 37. As I say, there were 5 houses at that time.
And how many trees were on Harbor Island at that time?
I don't know, there were a lot of pines and eucalyptus, which Alan probably told you about, that Joe Beek brought Alan and me over here and made it a treasure hunt for us to dig holes and plant these trees. I don't remember how the treasure hunt part worked, but we got awarded with a treasure hunt of some sort.
Who set this up for you? Was it Joe B?
It was Joe.
Joe set this up.
Joe.
And
yeah.
your father too at the same time?
No.
Or just Joe?
Just Joe.
And he challenged you guys to basically go find treasure and to dig.
Something like that. I don't remember how the treasure part worked, but I do remember that he specifically brought us over here to dig these holes and plant these trees, and there were a lot of them, eucalyptus and pines. And
so you planted a lot of the eucalyptus and pines on Harbor Island.
yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any pines left at all. And there's a few of the eucalyptus, but not many. And some of them were removed because they were, we had one on our lot that was too close to the bay that couldn't survive because it was
to the salinity
and then there were some that just got taken out because of there were 2 big pines and eucalyptus down on the lot where Donald Brent has built a house, and those were filled with great blue heron nests. And
that's a tragedy.
So it was too bad because those got removed.
Talk about it like a rare nesting ground that was almost natural for them.
Well, and so the great blue herons need some big tree, a eucalyptus or a pine that's tall. And the night herons, the black-crowned night herons, also need those kinds of trees. And there aren't a lot of them around anymore.
Yeah.
So that's something that we all have somewhat of a concern about. I mean, trying to keep
The
enough
flora
of the
and fauna.
big trees.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's important to keep it around because the trees probably, from what I can surmise, that Joe wanted you to plant was to help put roots down so it helps kind of solidify the landmass of Harbor Island. It also makes it a little bit nicer too.
Yeah.
But it also creates an environment for animals to live in as well, which also inadvertently, looking at the natural cycle of the bay, birds eat certain fish and certain bad animals, and then they also promote the other ones that will help maintain the bay, clean it, and so there's interesting interactions about maybe the inadvertent effects of Joe Beek telling you guys to go dig trees might have helped the area grow in a sense.
Well, he sort of ingrained. There were a lot of tree people. I mean, his motivation was to have a nice, beautiful island, you know, with trees. And there were 2 people over in Corona del Mar, the tree ladies, Isabel Pease and Mary Burton, who were the tree ladies in Corona del Mar.
Why were they called the tree ladies? Why were they called the tree ladies?
Well, because they were advocates for planting trees. They got the palm trees down, and they were part of saving
Our Newport?
the Corona del Mar State Beach, and then planting trees there. The eucalyptus tree, not the palm trees, rather.
So they were
Yeah.
the 2 that planted the first palms in Corona del Mar.
I believe they were. I mean, this would be somebody who would know more about that. Would be, gosh, see, Mary Burton died, and but we need to dig into that. As far as the details, I just know that they were very
Involved.
much a part of advocating for that to be a state beach, and then they were watching over it and making sure the trees got planted and so forth. So the evolution of trees, we are a arbor city, I'm happy to say, and people are concerned about it, but we continue to they continue to build these big houses and trees get replaced and
Torn down.
yeah.
And then that's a very interesting thing of looking at Newport's history in trees, because we live, according to the Köppen system, in a semi-arid climate. We're a semi-desert, so going to Crystal Cove, looking at the natural flora and fauna up in the hills there, gives me kind of a picturesque idea of what originally Newport before anyone came here. And so that's why when Alan started talking about growing trees, I was really curious to how many trees were even in Newport at that time. Probably not that many from what I understand.
No,
So
I don't remember them doing that on Balboa Island either. So I'm not sure what Joe's idea was for this, but I know we did that, and they know the trees were here.
Now, going back to Balboa Island, do you have any memories ever going to Hershey's Markets or the Jolly Roger, or what are some of those memories like?
Well, just routine. My mother went to Hershey's Market.
Did you ever interact with Henry or Tony or Henrietta?
I knew Finley. What was her name?
Henrietta's mom.
The Finleys were the daughter of Hershey. And she was in the junior assistant league when we first moved here. There still is the junior assistant league and the assistants league, and so Carol Beek and some of the people decided I should get into the junior assistant league so we could get some patients for Jay, my husband.
Yeah.
And so Ruth Finley was in that with me, and then so she was the daughter of Hershey. But my mother, when we were renting down here and when we built earlier, my mother was upset one time because she was a very good patron of the Hershey's Market, and she always paid her bills on, I think you just got billed by the month is how it worked. So she would pay her bills on time. And then they had this promotion for people that if they would pay up on their bills that hadn't been paid, they would get a free month. And that just didn't seem right. That didn't seem fair. That for the ones that had been paid.
Going around, yeah.
But anyway, that was how it worked then, the good old days. And then we had Richard's Market on Lido, which was also, they would bring food to your house and all of that sort of homespun market.
Now, did you ever have a favorite restaurant that your friends would go to or you yourself would go to here locally at that time? Like the Crab Cooker, or where was your go-to spot to
Well,
hang out and eat?
early in the game,
Yeah.
there was one across the bay. The building is still there on Balboa Boulevard that was a Mrs. Somebody's kitchen. And I remember going there weekly for pot roast and all the good old stuff. And I can't remember the name of it, but that one was one. It was
on the peninsula?
we would take the ferry across and have dinner over there. And then later there was one that's where Banderas is now. That one was a Chef's Inn, if I remember correctly, which was a spin-off of a Chef's Inn in Pasadena. I'd have to check with other people to be sure about that, but the owner of that was someone who lived here on the island. And then that one was sort of a special place that we would go. But we didn't, and then we went to Laguna to a Mexican restaurant, but there was not, we didn't eat out a whole lot. Obviously, the Jolly Roger we did. So, I mean, a lot of the ones that we used to go to are gone.
Did you and your friends ever used to buy food from Richards and go to Tin Can Beach and make a bonfire at all, or anything like that?
Yes, yeah, we did bonfires sure, yeah, bonfires were good. We had one on my beach not long ago.
Oh. Right behind you? Oh,
Right.
fun!
My son came down and got really excited about a big bonfire. It was a big bonfire on my beach.
Just recently or back in the...
A couple of years ago.
Cool. Now, can you recall Tin Can Beach at all in Newport? Did you ever
Tin Can Beach?
Yeah, up near like near the groins where all the tin cans and trash would go on, and
Not really, no.
but you can remember the amount of trash.
My,
on there.
my, what I did mostly about swimming, we would go to Corona del Mar Beach primarily for the waves, and otherwise most of my time was spent sailing or things in the bay, so I wasn't terribly familiar with the ocean beach.
Did you ever have any celebrity encounters on the open water, like with John Wayne's Wild Goose or anything like that?
No, nothing with John Wayne. Nothing with, what was it, Joey Bishop was here? We've had a lot of them, but
Did you ever participate in any of the races, like the tin or the beer can races? Did you ever sail any of those?
well, so we sailed in all of the snowbird races.
Okay.
And I was always the crew, except for then for the flight of the snowbirds, after my brother went off to war, I was 16 one summer, and I sailed in the flight of the snowbirds, and I was the first girl to finish. I don't know how many girls were in it, but I was 16th in the finishers. But so I was a pretty big girl to be sailing in that snowbird race. But
And that was by yourself in that snowbird
well,
race?
everybody did. I think the flight of the snowbirds you sailed without a crew, but I
Solo.
can't recall that for sure. I remember Alan one time, he was expected to sail in the flight of the snowbirds, so he dutifully took off from where they start down by the pavilion, and by that time we had moved over here, so he comes around and he sails over here and stops and plays on the beach for a while, and then went and finished the race because he knew his dad would insist that he finish the race.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but then we sailed. There were lots of small boat races at the Newport Yacht Club and the Balboa Yacht Club, and I had a friend with a Falcon, which was popular. All of these boats have been replaced by some subsequent fiberglass version. So the Falcon was also a wooden boat, but it was, and so we sailed the Newport Harbor Yacht Club with that, and then we gravitated to starboat racing.
And what year was that when you started getting the starboat racing?
Pardon?
When you started getting the starboat racing, what year was that?
That was
50s,
because
60s?
I was with my brother.
Oh, still, okay.
He was the skipper, and it would have been.
So this is still before the war?
Well, it was before the war.
Oh,
yeah.
that's okay.
Mhm.
Just to build a timeline, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be after he
Yeah,
returned or
everything ended after. When the war came on,
everything cut.
all the boys left,
Yeah.
and yeah, so things changed.
Now, in the 50s, there was also kind of a short-lived business in Corona del Mar called the Buffalo Ranch. Do you recall that at all, or did you ever go?
I do, and it's sad that we don't have a remnant of that. But yeah, I do. But it's not a huge memory, but it's one of those things that it's too bad we don't have more remnant of it there.
Did you ever go on the hayride at the Buffalo
No.
Ranch?
No,
Did you ever do a drive along yourself or anything like that?
no, no.
Did you ever take your kids to stop on the side of the road to feed the buffalo or anything like that too?
I'm sure we did, but
Hmm.
that was not.
How big was the property, so to speak? Did it look like expanded?
I
or-
don't even know. You're bringing up a lot of things that make me want to go research, but.
Oh no, that's why I'm just asking these things because.
Well,
because
it was a big property because all of that, none of those homes were built out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all just empty.
Now during that time too, you're starting to see the industries in Newport switch. Do you recall the canning industry in Newport at all, and the smell of the fishing canning at all?
No, all we smelled was oil. We smelled oil,
Marine oil and stuff like that.
not marine oil, oil from the refinery from up in Huntington Beach.
Interesting.
There would be
Very
a
pungent.
fairly strong smell of that early on. But we weren't close enough to the fisheries to have anything that would be like that.
As in like a lasting impression in terms of smell.
No.
Do you remember the salt works at all in the Back Bay?
Yeah, I do, because we spent a lot of time up there early in
That's
the
why.
game, yeah.
Did you guys ever go play in the facility or break in?
We didn't break in or play there, no.
Yeah, I might have gotten a little mischief with my friends. Like, hey, that's enough. Let's go have fun. Now, also during, let's see, what was it? During the, we'll go into the 90s, when you have the Laguna Fire, and I think it was in 92 or 93. Can you recall that experience at all, or what the issue was? Because I remember with my family on the verge of evacuation.
You were, yes. I mean, we were astounded is what it is. I mean, I wasn't thinking in terms of having to evacuate here, but it was almost unbelievable to think that anybody in Newport would have to, you know.
Because you could probably see it from this
Oh,
location.
absolutely, you could.
Hmm.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Oh man, that's like one, I guess, the only dramatic disaster I can recall in my.
Well,
Newport
and that was
report.
that was the precursor of what people are experiencing now.
Yeah,
That
the Holly Fire.
where a lot of these fires where they're getting into you wouldn't expect them to be able to find their way into a neighborhood that's built like that.
Yeah.
But because the embers float over and it's horrifying, really.
Hmm.
But yeah, we were just, I mean, it was just a matter of being kind of aghast and
Now, the other thing I really wanted to ask you was in Corona del Mar. Did you ever go to Five Crowns? And what was that experience like, going to Five Crowns? Like, especially with the dresses at the time, what I remember before they made that switch.
well, so Five Crowns, we distinctly remember. I mean, that one, we always loved that restaurant anyway, but then my daughter, one of them, when she graduated, Tammy, graduated from college in, 75 or something like that, worked there for a while as a waitress.
Really?
So she had to come home and she had all those petticoats and stuff that she had to keep ironed, and her shoes, they had these big cloggy shoes that had to be shined and painted red, as I recall. And so, yeah, she worked there. She made enough money that I said, gosh, that might be a good career for you. Thank you for letting me be interviewed today.
Thank you.
I'm Jean Watt,